It was plain English for this Saturday finish. Harris English methodical en route to a final round 73 and the 5th victory of his career. The veteran presence posting 12 consecutive pars to close out his day on a day that par was more than welcome. English, a winner again. For immediate reaction, we turn to our guy Shane Bacon, CBS Sports golf analyst. Shane, this was methodical. I think the best way to put it, what Harris English accomplished on this day. But what was the defining feature of this win in your eyes?
I think it was playing the golf course for what it is. I mean, Torrey Pines always plays tough. Obviously, they're going to revisit this golf course in a couple of weeks with the move of the Genesis. So somebody like Harris English is going to get another run at Torrey. But, you know, this is kind of how Torrey plays. I mean, not many times can you make one birdie in a final round and win. But the way he played 18 was, to me, kind of the encapsulation of his entire week, right? He hits an errant tee shot. A lot of players missing fairways throughout the week at Torrey Pines. Gets it back in play, hits it to 20 feet, 2-putt par, and I got my 5th win. And, Joe, we were talking, you know, before we got going here, 5 wins, kind of sneaky for Harris English in terms of his career, what he's done. And the one thing about Harris English is when he has won on the PGA Tour, it's come in bunches. You know, you think about the first year he won twice, 2021, won twice. So who knows if this year is that. And at age 35, you know, you don't think about 35 years old being a veteran presence in professional golf these days. But with how young golf is going, you know, these are kind of the last pushes for these players. And Harris English is a guy that has always hit it very far, which plays obviously in modern professional golf. So, you know, maybe this is kind of his Justin Rose or Adam Scott year that was 2024. Yeah,
equally as impressive as 5 career victories, 14 years on tour and keeping that card, coming off a torn labrum in that hip, repaired in 2022. So much is latter years, or the way it feels for Harris English, but still moved his ball around better than anybody this week. And really the through line throughout the day, and I heard you talking earlier on HQ, English was really the only winning pedigree on the first page of that leaderboard. How'd you see that serve him throughout the day at this former major venue?
Yeah, I mean, you saw it. It's a great point, and you saw a lot of the players, you know, that hadn't been there before hitting shots short-sided and missing in the wrong spot. I mean, Harris English has been successful at this golf course before. He's played well at Torrey Pines. He's kind of got a love-hate relationship in terms of his resume on this golf course throughout the years. But obviously, I mean, you saw him, you know, you think about where he hit it on 17. And again, where he hit it when he got out of position on 18. He was not going to miss it in the wrong spots. And when you kind of juxtapose that with somebody like Aldrich Potgieter, who I think everybody was excited to see play on this Saturday, you know, longest player last season on the Korn Ferry Tour. We saw a little from him of what we saw late last year on the DP World Tour when he struggled to close out the Nedbank Challenge. So, you know, I mean, there is experience that's needed in these golf tournaments. I think we love to lean on the young players and say, all right, this guy's the next big thing. He's going to win a whole bunch of times. But winning on the PGA Tour is tough. And having experience on some of these golf courses that are demanding is very, very difficult. You saw Harris English is like, nobody's going to push me. Fine, I'll just take this thing with a decent round, not anything I think he's going to like talk about it, you know, for years to come.
Yeah, exemplified by an iron off 17 when he did have that 2-shot lead. Again, methodical, poised, and a veteran experience showing through here in his 5th career win. Shane, I'm going to do something maybe dangerous, I don't know, unenviable, if nothing else here. I'm going to put you in charge of the setup for when we come back in 3 weeks. How do we get a different tournament with some of the best in the world returning to Torrey there for the relocated Genesis?
I mean, I think you could cut the rough down a little bit. You know, I mean, I do think these fairways are so tight that you see a lot of the similar types of golf shots. You know, Torrey's a beautiful golf course. I don't think Torrey Pines is the most interesting golf course in terms of watching professionals play. You know, you look at some of the players that dominated in terms of strokes gains off the tees this week. They weren't hitting fairways. Nobody was hitting fairways. So maybe you could cut the rough down a little bit, maybe around the greens even, and just allow players to hit some different types of shots. But, yeah, I mean, the other thing is, it's going to be a different golf tournament because you're going to have all the big names in the field. You know, outside of Ludwig Aberg this week, there wasn't really any of the super-duper stars in the field. So simply with the Rorys and the Scotties and the Xanders and the Jordans there, it will be more interesting simply because they're there. But, yeah, I think if you cut the rough down, you could see more opportunity for birdie, maybe move the tees up on a couple of par 5s if the winds are up like we saw in the last 2 rounds, which allows players to go for some of the par 5s. I mean, watching professional golfers lay up with an iron on a par 5 isn't the most interesting thing to do when it's not a U.S. Open. So I would say those are 2 things I'd probably look to do in a couple weeks when they get back here.
Yeah, 14 players WD'd since the draw was released on Monday. Some of that related to us returning here, perhaps. There was a bug going around, Aberg playing through it, and we got ourselves a winner in Harris English. Shane Bacon, appreciation as always.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, to look at that scorecard again. 12 straight coming home. Would he have signed for this card at the outset of the day? Perhaps. It's a victory here, a 5th career for Harris English. 8 under the number after posting a 1/73. Plenty for victory for English. It was the full English for this Saturday finish at Torrey Pines. Par was plenty for Harris English, who posted 12 consecutive to close en route to his 5th career victory. English, a winner again. It is our privilege to take you into the Super Tower at the conclusion of each week of golf on CBS. Lead analyst and 2008 Masters champion Trevor Immelman offering his perspective. Trev, it's great to be with you again here as we get going with golf on CBS. And we take a look at a 5th win here by a veteran presence in Harris English. What was the definitive feature of this victory in your eyes?
For me, it was the way he was able to grind it out in a short game. He led the field in scrambling for the week. And in these conditions where it's really tough and blustery and you're already on a tough golf course, you've got to be able to get it up and down when you've been out of position. And really key in on those holes 8 through 12. 5 times in a row he got it up and down to save par. And just hang in there. Keep his nose in front. And essentially what happened was all the other guys faltered. Look, Stevens played a brilliant round, but he was coming from just a bit too far back. But really solid stuff from Harris. I mean, the demeanor was on point, and he hit the right shots when he needed them.
Broader, it perhaps reflects his career now. 14 years on tour, a 5th victory for English, amassing quite a career. And as we try and file these wins into buckets, this is sort of veteran and comeback coming off that labrum in the hip. What does the staying power say about a guy like Harris English, who's made quite a living here on tour?
Yeah, for sure. Look, it shows some toughness that he's able to fight through that. It's tough as an athlete. Anytime you've got to have some sort of surgery, you never quite know how you're going to bounce back. And for him to go through that hip surgery after he was really ascending on the PGA Tour. He had won 4 times. He got into his first Ryder Cup, and so he was looking like one of the youngsters that was really going to take it to the next level. But gets sidelined, and it's been a long process back. But he's worked so hard. He surrounded himself with a great caddy and a great coach in Justin Parsons. And here he is on the 18th green with his first win as a father. And he's going to feel real good about himself tonight. And the fact that it happened so early in the season, he should be able to kick on from here. And by the way, it's another Ryder Cup year, so who knows what happens come September.
Yeah, we've seen early season wins parlayed into a 2nd for English multiple times in his career already. But we are only as good as our next one, and we know you pull that short straw of heading down 17-mile drive for a week at Pebble, Trevor. Other than dinners at the tap room, what's got you most excited about the week to come?
Yeah, it's a tough job, isn't it, Moose? but so many things. Pebble Beach is an iconic venue, and the fact that it's a signature event and we're going to have all the best players on the PGA Tour there, I'm really looking forward to it. In particular, seeing Scotty Scheffler. We all know about the injury he sustained over Christmas time. He hasn't been able to tee it up yet in 2025, so what sort of form is he going to be able to come to Pebble Beach with? But to be able to go down there and really enjoy the week. Last year was an awkward finish because of the bad weather we had come in on the Sunday, so it ended up being a 3-round tournament. We're looking to go 4 rounds this time around and crown a great champion. And they will leave the light on there for you at Torrey as you'll be back there in a few weeks for the Genesis. Trevor Immelman, we appreciate your time as always. Thanks, Moose.
The best doing it right there. Trevor Immelman stopping by each and every week here on CBS Sports HQ. More coverage coming from Torrey as Harris English hoists another. Reaction next.
A long time in the making. Harris English conquers Torrey Pines.
Our Jim Nantz on the call there at Torrey Pines from Kansas City. It's the best in the business here on CBS Sports, our coverage of golf. Off and running here with a Harris English victory. Shane Bacon back in the fold. Patrick McDonald, CBS Sports golf writer, joining the conversation as well. Patrick, Shane and I were, I guess, exploring what 5 wins means a little bit earlier. Only 268 players in the history of this sport have 5 or more. What does this win mean today for Harris English?
I think it validates almost that he's returning to the player that he was. I mean, in 2021, Harris English was a top 10 player in the world. He played for the Ryder Cup. He almost won in the playoffs, too, at the St. Jude Championship. Everyone remembers that 8-hole playoff with Kramer Hickok, of course, and he contended in major championships. He almost won the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines that year when John Rahm. And so coming off that labrum surgery, it was a slow return back to the mountaintop. 2022 wasn't great. 2023, 2024, there were signs of it, but the ball striking really wasn't where it needed to be. We saw that on Saturday late, the iron player that Harris English can be, especially on that back nine with a number of quality wedge shots. And then today was really just a masterclass in game management, managing what he had in the bag and getting around Torrey Pines effectively. So 5 wins in this era is no small feat. And for Harris English to do that while going through an injury makes it all the more special.
Yeah, I mean, I think about Harris English as, a very, very good B-level player in professional golf. I mean, longevity's been impressive. Obviously, the game is there, but, you can pick up wins or you can't. And I think he's one of those players that has had opportunities at times, kind of across the board, low-level events, kind of mid-tier events and high-tier events, and he's won there. And, I mean, Patrick was talking about U.S. Open success. I mean, he hasn't played great in major championships outside of U.S. Opens, but he's had success in U.S. Opens, and that says a lot about where your game is and who you are against the best in the world. So I think validation is the correct term this week. I mean, getting back into the winner's circle is a huge thing. And, Joe, we were talking a little bit about it earlier. There weren't a lot of guys pushing him, and when nobody's going to push you, you have the opportunity to go get it. He went out and got it. And again, he's done that a few times in his career. So, he's just been a guy that's been on tour a long time. And I think now the focus for him is, can I make another American team? And I think there's a real opportunity there.
Yeah, we'll see how it all stacks up this season leading up to that moment at the end of season at Bethpage. Everybody with their eyes on it, even the captain. It's a conversation for another day, but a step forward towards that direction here for Harris English. We also spoke about the fact that we're headed back to Torrey Pines, Shane, and the middle of the Venn diagram of this field and the field we will see in a few weeks, it's not very large. It's going to be a different type of golfer out there. We saw 9-under lead through 18 holes here by Ludwig Åberg. We saw 8-under win the tournament. How do you expect these two things to inform one another, this tournament and the one you expect to see in a few weeks?
Well, I mean, if you're Harris English, I mean, you show up with an opportunity to go out there and win a couple of times. I mean, it's a golf course, as we spoke about earlier, he's played great at, losing in that playoff a few years back, and he's now won at. And I think, you think about the U.S. Open when he contended in it, he obviously has the game that works well at Torrey Pines. And so winning here, winning this week was awesome. I mean, the Farmers is an event that's carried a lot of history over the last 30 years. But now you take a step forward and you think about what could come if you win here in a couple of weeks in a signature event or even contend there. I mean, it could do a lot for the end of season, for the end of his season. I mean, he's got to be going into that event with a ton of confidence. So, I mean, if you're Harris English, hearing that it's returning here, hearing they're moving to the Genesis to Torrey with the way he was able to play and kind of go about his business, with the way he was able to scramble this week around the greens, as tough as it is around Torrey, I mean, he's got to be ecstatic that there's another opportunity at this golf course with the way he's swinging it right now.
I totally agree, Shane, but he probably needs to get a little bit better off the tee and on approach, especially with the way he played on Sunday with the guys who are going to be in the field at the Genesis Invitational. It sounds weird to say knowing we're going back to Torrey Pines, but it's going to be flushers only across the South course as well. And Joe, I know you alluded to the 9-under start with Ludwig on the North course, and I'm just ecstatic for these guys to play a firm, difficult test. I know the architecture guys out there may not be happy that Riviera is not going to be on the rotation this year, but it's a major championship venue that has crowned great champions. You look at Tiger Woods and John Rahm, of course, and I think it has a chance to set up a great championship again.
Maybe we tee one forward and meet that need for a reachable par 4 like we usually get there at Riv. Let's talk about another great venue, the one we're heading to here next week on CBS. We got a full field coming for the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and it's going to be interesting to see Scotty Scheffler specifically for the first time this season. Patrick, it's a ravioli injury, which is something I never thought I'd really say, and a tough look for a handmade pasta enthusiast that has robbed him of his early season. But when you look at Scotty, this is a guy we watched make birdie fresh out of jail last year at the PGA Championship. Do you expect him to be governor off full Scotty next week?
I do. I don't think Scottie Scheffler would tee it up if Scottie Scheffler didn't think he could win the golf tournament that he's playing in. And I think the biggest thing out of the report from Todd Lewis, I believe he had it, was that Scottie Scheffler didn't take a full swing until this past week. And Scottie Scheffler just thinks 1 week is enough to take down the best players in the world. And who am I to stand in his way and say that he is wrong given what he just did in 2024? But if you're some of these stars at the top of the world, like a Colin Morikawa or a Justin Thomas, who haven't won in quite some time, this is your time to get after Scottie Scheffler and get into the winner's circle. I think it's a great opportunity for some of the stars to really shine at Pebble Beach, a golf course that didn't really get its true light last year with the shortened 54-hole event. So Scottie Scheffler, I expect great things out of him like I do most weeks, even despite that ravioli injury. But I think it's a great chance also for the stars to enter the winner's circle.
And you know, I think about Scottie Scheffler and see this almost as a benefit. I mean, golf can be exhausting. You think about what he went through the last season and a half. I mean, winning all those golf tournaments is awesome, obviously, but it could be tiring. I mean, you think about all the mental, fortitude that has to go in those weeks when you're in the contention and you have a chance to win. Getting a real break, a true offseason for somebody like Scottie Scheffler, I think could really play into his benefit and into his hands. And I mean, Scottie's one of those guys, it's never the most beautiful thing in the world, right? But he hits it in the middle of the club face each and every time he swings it, and he's an unbelievable scrambler. So getting a few weeks off, more weeks off than maybe he was expecting to get, I think could be a benefit for him going forward.
We'll see where he stands with that claw grip that he debuted here in the offseason. We'll see if that's still in play with our first look at Scottie coming up next week on CBS. Time now for your FedEx Cup update. The season-long race for the FedEx Cup there at East Lake. And here's a look at that leaderboard. Hideki Matsuyama with his win prior this season, still squarely in control, but Harris English, the big climber, coming off his win. It's a long way to go, fellas, but you can always take big steps forward. Your FedEx Cup update is presented by FedEx, where now meets next. Getting our fellas in the mix here on some broader thoughts here across the season. Shane, I know a lot of work to be done and a lot of opportunities to amass points, but when you look at that end game some 6 months from now, how important is it to be a guy with a victory in his pocket this early?
Playing early in the year is just so beneficial across the board. I mean, you think about Aldrich Pock-Eater, who we just watched this week, obviously get himself in contention. And you think about what he did last season on the Korn Ferry Tour. He got that win early in the season, did not play great really the rest of the year, but that win propelled him to an opportunity to get a PGA Tour card. You think about Harris English this week. I mean, playing well, getting a win, now puts him in a position for a lot of things at the end of the season. It also takes the stress off your back. You don't have to sit there and go, when's the game going to show up? Can I get myself in contention? What is a T12 going to do this week? Now, with the win, you have a couple other top 10s. Maybe you get, in a playoff or do something silly in the middle of the year at some of those golf courses that he likes. And now East Lake is a real opportunity for a player like Harris English. So, I mean, the win early just takes the stress off. And as you know, deeper into the season, players can get stressed when things aren't going their way.
Yeah, I look at Chris Kirk's year last year in 2024. He obviously won the Century, and then late he didn't really have his game. He took about a month and a half off. He still made it into the BMW Championship and the Tour Championship. And the way the PGA Tour is set up this day and age is you make the top 50 in the FedEx Cup standings. You're set up for the following year, too, with all the signature events. So not only is Harris English in all the signature events this year and punches his ticket into the Masters, but if he just holds serve pretty much, he'll be in those signature events next year as well, as opposed to fighting through the FedEx Cup fall like he did this past season.
Patrick McDonald, Shane Bacon, appreciation as always, fellas. Hit him straight when you get the chance. And if you have a chance, download, subscribe, and enjoy the First Cut podcast. Our guys, week by week on tour, taking you under the ropes and into the action. The conversation always continues on the First Cut podcast.